Soul Land 2. The Peerless Tang Sect Episode 152. Huo Yuhao leads the entire Tang Sect into battle. Soul Blast instantly wipes out the Sun Moon Empire's Soul Engineer Corps, and the 600,000-year Sea Princess is about to appear. After Huo Yuhao returned Crown Prince Xu Yunhan, no one expected the Sun Moon Empire to launch a full-scale war against the three great empires almost immediately afterward. Tianran ordered Zhu Zi to lead an army of 300,000 soldiers in an assault against them. Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong returned to Shrek Academy, where he reported everything that had happened on the journey to Elder Xuan, including the matter of returning the Crown Prince. Elder Xuan did not blame him. Instead, he sighed that war was already on the verge of breaking out and asked Huo Yuhao what he thought they should do. Huo Yuhao stated plainly that the Sun Moon Empire held an overwhelming advantage in soul tools, and Zhu Zi, who commanded their army, was also an exceptional military strategist. If they fought head-on, their chances of victory would be extremely low. The only way to break the situation was to send an elite surprise force deep behind enemy lines, strike the Sun Moon Empire's rear, and disrupt their offensive rhythm. Elder Xuan worried that no surprise force could possibly break through the layers of defenses set up by the Sun Moon Empire. But Huo Yuhao proposed a solution. His necromantic demiplane could solve that problem. He could bring a team inside and silently infiltrate the Sun Moon Empire's territory. Elder Xuan was deeply shaken by this and immediately convened a Sea Gods Pavilion meeting. Huo Yuhao brought the elders into his necromantic demiplane and showed them his absolute control over the space, as well as the 100-meter-tall giant bear guarding it. The safety of any troops stationed there could be completely guaranteed. After seeing it for themselves, the elders all agreed to the plan. In the end, the meeting decided that Shrek Academy would deploy the 3 Soul Engineer Legions it had spent 2 years training, with Huo Yuhao serving as supreme commander for this behind enemy lines assault. Before the expedition, the 3 Soul Engineer Legions assembled on the training field. Nearly 3,000 Soul Masters stood fully armed and ready. Almost all of the Tang Sect's core leadership had come out in force. As supreme commander, Huo Yuhao used his spiritual power to send his voice directly into everyone's mind. He laid down one absolute rule: every command had to be obeyed without question. He also made them a promise, telling them that this operation would use an entirely new teleportation-style method of warfare. Then he prepared to activate his ability and bring everyone into the necromantic demiplane. Huo Yuhao activated his twin, martial souls. The soul rings of his spirit eyes and Ice Jade Empress Scorpion flashed one after another. As his soul power surged around him, he transformed into a massive vertical eye suspended in the air. This was his innate martial soul, the Azura's Eye. As he chanted in a low voice, 9 pitch-black necromantic gates slowly opened before the reviewing platform. Under Huo Yuhao's command, the 3 Soul Engineer Legions advanced through the gates in perfect order. The first to move was the Heavy Artillery Soul Engineer Legion, which had the weakest mobility. 300 Juga Divine Crossbow Cannons, fitted with tracks, slowly advanced under their own soul power propulsion. It took 10 minutes for all of them to enter the gates. Next came the Fort Soul Engineer Legion. Thanks to the mobility of their all-terrain self-propelled forts, they completed entry in only 4 minutes. Last was the Tang Sect Soul Engineer Legion, equipped with flying-type soul tools. 200 elite soul masters dove down from the air and flew into the gates in formation within 2 minutes. In just 16 minutes, all 3 Soul Engineer Legions, totaling 2,700 people, had entered Huo Yuhao's necromantic demiplane. This ability meant that they could gather or withdraw their entire force anywhere within 20 minutes. And Huo Yuhao's personal concealment abilities had already been proven countless times on the battlefield. The 9 gates slowly closed. Huo Yuhao returned to human form and landed on the ground. He came to the side of the training field and respectfully bowed to Elder Xuan and the others waiting there. Elder Xuan told him that the Sun Moon Empire's 300,000-strong army had entered the Heavenly Soul Empire's territory, just as predicted, and was advancing southeast. Whether this battle could create a miracle now depended entirely on Huo Yuhao's operation behind enemy lines. Huo Yuhao solemnly accepted the mission. After bidding farewell to everyone, he activated his invisibility ability, rose into the air, and flew straight toward the Mingdou mountain range of the Star Luo Empire. Before setting out, he had already arranged for the Ice Bear King, Airby, to clear away all undead creatures around the camp area inside the demiplane. As for calming the troops and explaining the situation, he left that to the Tang Sect senior members, so he did not need to divide his attention. At noon, Huo Yuhao arrived at the Mingdou mountain range. He learned that the White Tiger Duke had already led elite troops north to reinforce the Star Luo Empire's defenses, and that Princess Qiuzhou was now stationed here. The two met inside the main tent. Princess Qiuzhou told him that the Sun Moon Empire had set up a tight blockade along the border. High-altitude surveillance soul tools worked together with ground-based soul tool positions, causing Star Luo's scouting operations to fail again and again. She hoped Huo Yuhao could help them. Huo Yuhao declined the scouting mission, but he agreed to help destroy the enemy's high-altitude surveillance soul tools. He also briefly revealed that he would lead an elite team deep into the Sun Moon Empire's heartland to carry out sabotage operations behind enemy lines, using this to restrain the enemy forces at the front. Princess Qiuzhou was greatly shocked when she heard this, and her respect for him deepened. She personally escorted him to the edge of the main peak and watched as he vanished into the sky under invisibility. Huo Yuhao did not expose the secret of the necromantic demiplane. Relying on his extraordinary spiritual power and concealment ability, he bypassed layer after layer of detection and quietly infiltrated the Sun Moon Empire's territory. He chose the nearest soul tool position and used spiritual detection to map out its full deployment. There were more than 100 soul tools of various types inside the position, 5,000 ordinary soldiers guarding the perimeter, and only a little over 100 soul engineers operating the core systems. The strongest among them was merely a 7-ring soul sage. Most of the soul tools relied on sealed milk bottles as their power source. After confirming the situation, Huo Yuhao withdrew to a safe area and opened the necromantic demiplane. He finalized the battle plan with his companions. First, they would release the Heavy Artillery Soul Engineer Legion to form their firing formation. Then Huo Yuhao took Tang Wudong's hand, activated his imitation soul skill once again, and moved toward the soul tool position. Huo Yuhao's spiritual power was already capable of avoiding the vast majority of detection soul tools. The two of them successfully passed through the soldiers' camp during the midday rest period and went straight into the core area of the soul tool position. The instant they stepped into the position, alarms suddenly rang out. But that could not stop Huo Yuhao. He immediately opened his Eye of Destiny, amplifying his spiritual power to the extreme. A wide-range soul blast swept outward. More than 50 soul engineers in the rest area did not even have time to react before dying on the spot. Afterward, Huo Yuhao moved rapidly through the position with Tang Wudong, unleashing soul attacks one after another. In just a few minutes, every soul engineer in the position had been eliminated. Huo Yuhao successfully entered the core control room and shut down the linked defensive barrier. Then he quietly withdrew with Tang Wudong. After returning to his own position, Huo Yuhao immediately used spiritual sharing to lock onto the high-altitude targets for the Heavy Artillery Soul Engineer Legion. 20 Zhuge Divine crossbow cannons fired at the same time. More than 300 Class 4 stationary soul cannon shells roared into the sky and accurately destroyed over 100 high-altitude surveillance soul tools within range. Immediately afterward, he ordered Bei Bei and He Kaitu to lead the Tang Sect Soul Engineer Legion and the Fort Soul Engineer Legion into battle. They swept through the outer defenders and seized sealed milk bottles, high-grade soul tools, and all kinds of military supplies from the position. Just as everyone was quickly transporting the supplies, Huo Yuhao detected through spiritual detection that reinforcements from the Sun Moon Empire were rushing toward them at high speed. He immediately gave the retreat signal. Everyone destroyed the soul tools they could not carry away, and in moments, the entire soul tool position was reduced to ruins. After winning their first battle, Huo Yuhao brought Tang Wudong back to the forest first to guard the opened necromantic gate. The Fort Soul Engineer Legion, which had completed its withdrawal, also relied on the high mobility of its 8 mechanical legs and quickly disappeared deep into the mountains and woods. By the time the Sun-Moon Empire's reinforcements arrived at the scene, all that remained was the wreckage of a completely destroyed soul tool position. After every unit had withdrawn into the necromantic demiplane, the surroundings instantly returned to silence, as if this sudden assault force had never appeared at all. Huo Yuhao followed the troops back into the demiplane and reunited with the Tang Sect members on a small hill. Everyone's faces were filled with excitement that they could hardly hide. This was not only Huo Yuhao's first time commanding a military corps in battle, but also the Tang Sect's first time leading Soul Engineer Legions onto a true battlefield. The 3 Soul Engineer Legions had each used their strengths, and their first battle had ended in a crushing victory. Hikaitu looked at the enormous amount of captured military supplies and no longer seemed distressed over the stationary soul cannon shells they had used earlier. He suggested that they continue removing the remaining soul tool positions outside the Mingdo mountain range to help the Star Luo Empire restrain the enemy at the front. But Huo Yuhao shook his head. He said frankly that if they continued fighting along the border, not only would their existence be fully exposed, but once the enemy reacted, they would be entangled by enemy forces and suffer losses they could not afford. Their greatest advantage was the extreme mobility granted by the necromantic demiplane. Within 2 days, Huo Yuhao could bring all of them to any corner of the Sun-Moon Empire. Only by spreading the battlefield across the entire empire and targeting weakly defended strongholds could they truly shake the foundation of Sun-Moon rule and throw the whole empire into panic. Bei Bei and Su Sanshur both agreed with him. Huo Yuhao told everyone to rest quickly and recover their soul power. He wanted the Sun-Moon Empire to receive news of attacks in multiple regions across the country at nearly the same time. The scene then shifted to the Heavenly Soul Empire's front line. Zhu Zi hovered silently in midair, surrounded by members of the Fire Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion, who served as her personal guards. After the Crown Prince had been recovered, the hatred in her heart had faded considerably, but her longing for Huo Yuhao had only grown stronger. She even could not help regretting that she had not abandoned everything back then and followed him away from Radiant City. Su Tianran's firm refusal at that time had also made her completely determined to carry out her own plan. Now that she held most of the Sun-Moon Empire's military power in her hands, her position as supreme commander of the 3 armies had become increasingly stable. She immediately ordered the entire army to rest for 3 days, set up defensive soul tool positions, double the range of high-altitude surveillance, and intensify reconnaissance of the remnants of the Heavenly Soul Empire and the Douling Empire's allied forces. And now, the purpose behind her war had also gained another layer, paving the way for her son, Xu Yunhan. On the other side, after Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong finished resting, they discovered that the border had been fully covered by the Sun-Moon Empire's detection network. The enemy was searching for them with all its strength. Huo Yuhao immediately activated his imitation soul skill and entered an invisible state. He brought Tang Wutong along and traveled at nearly the speed of sound, completely leaving the border search zone behind. Along the way, they arrived at Oak City in the northern part of the Sun-Moon Empire. This city was near the far northern Icy Sea and served as an important trade hub in the north. Because of its remote location, its defenses were lax. There were only around 1,000 defenders inside the city and almost no real resistance force. On a small hill outside the city, Huo Yuhao chanted a spell and opened the necromantic gate, releasing only the Fort Soul Engineer Legion. He and Tang Wutong entered Hikaitu's personal Class 8 self-propelled fort and set their operational goal: raid only the grain stores, treasury, and supply warehouses while avoiding harm to civilians as much as possible. Hikaitu immediately led the unit toward Oak City at full speed. The distance of 100 li took this force only 1 hour to cover. By the time the soldiers patrolling the city walls noticed the assault force, it was already too late for any effective response. From 2 kilometers away, Hikaitu fired 1 shot and blasted Oak City's gate apart. Then, with Huo Yuhao's spiritual lock-on, he used long-range piercing cannons to clear out all aerial surveillance and communication soul tools, completely cutting Oak City off from the outside world. 300 all-terrain self-propelled forts easily climbed over the city walls. In just 15 minutes, they captured the city, Lord's Manor, and the major warehouses. In only 1 hour, they completed the looting of supplies throughout the city. Afterward, the entire force withdrew into the necromantic demiplane and vanished without a trace. Back inside the demiplane, everyone looked at the mountains of grain and supplies piled before them. Bei remarked that seizing food was the best way to create panic and shake the foundation of the enemy's rule. Huo Yuhao spread out a map and told everyone that Oak City had merely been a training exercise. Their real target was Dongyang City, the #1 major city in the northern Sun Moon Empire. This city had 20,000 regular troops stationed there and was the North's largest storage site for supplies and grain. Now, because the front line had drawn away so many forces, the rear was empty. Huo Yuhao decided to adjust their tactics immediately and launch a surprise attack on this major northern city before news from Oak City could reach Dongyang City. As the most prosperous core city in the Sun Moon Empire's north, Dongyang City had always been considered an ideal place to live by the people of the region. Property prices in the city remained high. Because the city had to guard against attacks from sea soul beasts in the ICC, its gates closed at sunset. By dusk, the flow of people at the gates had already thinned. Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong changed their appearances and disguised themselves as an ordinary married couple. Carrying only simple luggage, they entered the city smoothly. Dongyang City had rarely seen war over the years, and now it had become a rear city of the empire. The guards were extremely lax in checking people entering and leaving. They relied almost entirely on the detection soul tools in the sky for basic protection and had never imagined that an enemy army might launch a surprise attack. After they entered the city, the sky had grown completely dark. Looking at the loose city defenses, Tang Wutong could not help admiring Huo Yuhao's prediction. The two found a barbecue restaurant located in the center of Dongyang City, close to the city Lord's Manor. In the bitter cold of the north, the most popular local dish was roasted snow pork served with wheat beer. The restaurant was already about 80% full when they sat down. As Tang Wutong looked at the warm, lively atmosphere inside the restaurant, she could not help lamenting the suffering that war brought to ordinary people. Huo Yuhao quietly replied that all they could do was avoid harming innocent civilians as much as possible during their operation. As they spoke, a faint golden light flashed in Huo Yuhao's eyes. Silently, he released spiritual detection. He had chosen this place precisely because of its central location, allowing him to probe as much of Dongyang City's defenses as possible. His spiritual cultivation had long since reached a completely different level. The fluctuations from his detection were now so weak that they were almost impossible for spiritual detection soul tools to capture. He could even use his spiritual body to avoid being locked onto. His ability to survive had already reached the very top tier. By the time the roasted meat and wheat beer were served, most of Dongyang City's layout had already fallen under Huo Yuhao's control. After he came back to himself, he tasted the local roasted meat with Tang Wutong. Once they paid the bill, they strolled through the quiet streets. Huo Yuhao told Tang Wutong the results of his investigation. Dongyang City's defenses were far stronger than expected. Not only were there 30,000 defenders and 150 soul engineers inside the city, but the northern part of the city also had an integrated offensive and defensive soul tool position equipped with a large number of spiritual detection soul tools. Even his spiritual detection had almost been locked onto. Just as the two were thinking about how to break the situation, inspiration suddenly struck Tang Wutong. She reasoned that the spiritual detection equipment in this soul tool position was likely designed to defend against spiritual-type sea soul beasts from the ICC. That also meant there was a high chance that a spiritual-type sea soul beast suitable for Huo Yuhao existed in the nearby waters. Huo Yuhao instantly understood. His spirit eye's martial soul still had only 7 rings, and he had long since sworn never to hunt soul beasts for soul rings again. If he could find a spiritual-type sea soul beast willing to become a soul spirit, not only could he complete his next soul ring, but it would also greatly increase his chances of successfully forming his second soul core. At that moment, the Snow Empress's voice sounded inside Huo Yuhao's spiritual sea. Huo Yuhao immediately opened his spiritual interference domain and summoned the Snow Empress and Ice Empress. The two Empresses of Ice and Snow confirmed that in the nearby ICC, there was indeed a race of sea soul beasts most skilled in spiritual abilities, the Sea Princess clan. They were ocean spirits with human upper bodies and fish tails. Their society honored women, and their clan leader was a top-tier powerhouse on the same level as the Snow Empress. In the sea, even the evil tyrant ruler might not be able to defeat her. She was the ruler of this ICC. The Snow Empress also admitted that the Sea Princess clan had a noble bloodline and would be difficult to persuade. However, she was willing to step forward and help negotiate. As long as they did not venture too deep into the ICC, there would not be too much danger. Huo Yuhao immediately decided that after resolving the battle in Dongyang City, he would head to the ICC and give it a try.